Hello everyone. Welcome to another topic of unit of technical analysis. We are studying WD Gann trading techniques, and again, last time when we had seen cycles of Venus, specifically, we had seen one more perspective, which is geocentric part. Now, geocentric is where Earth is at the center. The sun keeps on rotating around us, that is around the earth. That is how we see it, and the planets also keep on rotating around the sun simultaneously, right? So in this we need to listen to some new terminologies. Last time our focus was especially there on the Venus cycle, because Venus has entered into Libra. That was there on 22nd of October 2022, which we have already seen. We have given the details altogether. We You can refer to the previous video for that. And now let's try to get more of into geocentric part. We need to understand more terminologies. We'll try to go slowly and gradually. We'll not just try to just bump in and get more of details, right? So we'll try to learn two more terminologies. One is retrograde and second is epicycles. Now, what do you mean by epicycles? We need to understand, right? So what happens is when Earth is at the center, it is called as geocentric. That is, geo means Earth, Earth is at the center, and we see everything from that perspective where Earth is at the center. What happens with that is, with Earth being at the center, we assume that the sun is rotating around the Earth, right? So this is the first and basic fundamental thing that we need to do. With that, what happens is the other planets, they keep on rotating. First is around the sun, and we also assume that with the rotation around the sun, it keeps on rotating the earth also, right? Now this nomenclature of one object rotating around one object and simultaneously rotating around other object is called as epicenter, right? So that is what is epicycles called as. I beg your pardon, not epicenter, it is called as epicycles. So epicycles is when a planet rotates around the sun, and where we assume, being in geocentric, that is the sun rotates around the earth also, and simultaneously the planets. Let's say for example Venus is over here. So Venus keeps on rotating around sun as the center, and with this epicycle it also rotates around the earth. So this is what is called as epicycle. That is one part. Second is retrograde. So let's for understanding retrograde, let's try to understand few more geocentric aspects, which is one of Jupiter and second is of Mars. Of course, we need to study this. We cannot just focus only on Venus part. We need to study about other planets also. So let's go to Jupiter. Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system as such. So let's try to focus on those parts, right? So here is a small video which we like to understand. How it is there is the center point you can see, that is Earth, and this is Sun. So there is some specific distance between that, and this is going to be Jupiter. So Jupiter is going to have a basic bigger cycle because it is at a longer distance than between the sun and earth. So if sun is there, earth is on one side, it is not necessary, but if we assume that the Jupiter is on other side, yes, this is how it would be looking like. So let's try to look at this cycle also and try to interpret something from that. So this is how the movement is, where first of all the sun keeps on rotating around the earth, but simultaneously, but with you can see that there is a loop which is being traced around, right? So these are very loops which have been formed, and the speciality of this loop is it goes into forward motion and backward motion. For example, it going on to backward motion and again goes into a backward motion, right? Now the movement of these planets going into forward and then going towards backward motion, right? Especially backward motion is called as retrograde, where the planet moves back and forth. This is called as retrograde motion. We'll try to understand this more of into details, but let's try to focus here on the Jupiter. So here we can see that over a period of time, right, these loops are being formed. Now let's try to understand once the cycle has been, because if you consider this as the start point, and if you see these loops which have been formed, right? So we'll be able to define that we have been getting various loops. For example, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 loops are being formed overall when there is a complete cycle of Jupiter, right? And this complete cycle of Jupiter takes around 11.86 years, right? That is 4,332 days as such specifically. So this is the first cycle that we needed to understand, which is there of Jupiter as such specifically, right? And it keeps on rotating around the sun. But with that epicycle, we assume that Jupiter also rotates around the sun in the geocentric model. So where it creates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 loops when it completes a entire cycle around the Earth, which takes around 11.86 years. Right? So this is the first cycle that we needed to understand. Here we'll be getting different kind of cycles, right? So this is the first one. If you want to understand more of details, yes, there are more of cycles. Where are our cycles formed? So probably we just need to figure out from the files. In a start point. Let me go to that file probably. So yes. So these are the various way in which the geocentric models, let's say, for example, we just saw it for Jupiter. This is the way in which these loops are being formed. This is there for Venus, which you have already seen. Let's try to see one more, which is there, let's say, for example, for Mars. We'll be able to see it for Mars, how this has been formed, because like Venus is again nearer to Earth. Mars is also nearer to Earth. Jupiter was far away, so these loops have been formed over a period of huge time, that is 11.86 years. So let's try to see how this have been formed for Mars, because on one side we have Venus, and again on the farther side we have Mars. So let's try to see that also for Mars. So this is how it is looking for Mars. Just quickly see through the details. Right, so we are here also measuring the number of years which is there for Earth as well as for Mars. So that's how the cycle starts. So these are again loops which are being formed, so you can be able to see these loops one by one gradually, right? Now how these loops are exactly being formed and how they have been transacting, which we call as retrograde. So let's try to see another small video as such, so that we are able to understand the basic details about retrograde. So let's say, for example, this is Mars. How the movement of Mars happens, that we'll just try to see. So let's say, for example, Mars is there. This is just moving across. And when the loop is been formed, yes, it comes back and again tries to move in a specific direction. So this is how the movement is been formed. And this is a specific movement which is being formed. We'll try to see this movement also. So this is how the movement is there. So these moments are there typically different for each and every planet. So this is what is called as a retrograde, right? When it is like moving further and going back also, right? So that is how it is. Let's try to see this cycle further. So we again see various loops which have been formed. These are called as retrogrades. And these are formed over a period of time, right? So this is there, as we see, this loops have been formed as the planet keeps on going further and then moving backward also. When it moves further and backward, yes, this moment is called as retrograde specifically. And these are various loops which are being formed over a period of time, right? So this have been done. So let's say, for example, uh, when this loop is entirely been completed, right, from year to year, so we have around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops. 7 loops which have been formed, right? And in this time period, especially if you see, you would be able to understand that during this time period, Earth has taken 15 years, that is around 15 rotations around the sun. And during the same time period, Mars has taken 8 years, that is 8 rotations, because it is just away from the Earth. I mean, longer distance between the sun and Mars. Mars is at a longer distance. Earth is closer, right? So this is how it is there. And during this time period, this is completing somewhere around 7 loops, right? So this is something very important that we need to understand, right? We'll try to cover details more of one by one, but gradually at this stage, we wanted to make you understand few of the things. One is the terminology which has been used is retrograde. Second is epicycles, and we wanted to make you understand more about the geocentric model. So that's why what we did is we tried to see various cycles. Let's say, for example, we saw a cycle which is there of Jupiter, which takes around 11.86 years to complete a rotation around the Earth as such, if we consider the geocentric model. And we saw one more model which is there of Mars. Now, if you see for Mars, yes, it completes a cycle around, let's say, 15 Earth years together. And during this 15 Earth years altogether, you see that you will be able to form more of 7 loops, and Mars during that time period takes around 18 years to form as such specifically, right? So this is how the model overall is being formed, right? Let's try to see more of in terms of details how they go by one gradually, and we'll be able to understand more of in details. But yes, before that, we just wanted to understand the basic things, that is like what is the geocentric model, which we have already seen for Venus, but Venus, the focus was more of on the date entering into Libra as such. So we are not able to focus on rest of the things. Here we wanted to focus more of on retrograde. We also wanted to focus on epicycles, and we wanted to take few more examples, which is there of Jupiter and Mars. And if you see overall, yes, for Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, this is how the cycles have been formed over a period of time, right? So next chapter probably we'll try to find out more about the details as such. So please stay tuned. Thank you.